Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So we're reading the Bhagavad Gita as it is. We're on chapter number 2, text number 59. Vishaya vinivartante,
Vishaya vinivartante,
viraharasya dehina,
Viraharasya dehina,
rasavajam rasopiyasya,
Rasavajam rasopiyasya,
param drisva nivartate,
Param Drishva nivartate,
Vishaya vinivartante,
Vishaya vinivartante,
viraharasya dehina,
Viraharasya dehina,
rasavajam rasopiyasya.
Rasavajam rasopiyasya,
Param drisva nivartate,
Param Drishva nivartate,
Vishaya Vishaya Vinivartante
Vishaya vinivartante
Niraharasya Dehina
Niraharasya dehina
Rasavajam Ratopiyasya
Rasavarjam rasopyasya
Param Drisva Nivartante
Param drishtva nivartate Vishaya vinivartante Vishaya vinivartante Niraharasya dehina Niraharasya dehina Rasavarjam rasopyasya Rasavarjam rasopyasya Param drishtva nivartate Param drishtva nivartate
Vishaya Vinivartante
Vishaya vinivartante
Niraharasya Dehina
Niraharasya dehina
Rasavarjam Rasopyasya
Rasavarjam rasopyasya
Param Drisva Nivartate
Param drishtva nivartate Vishaya vinivartante Niraharasya dehina Rasavarjam rasopyasya Param drishtva nivartate
Now ladies,
Vishaya vinivartante
Vishaya vinivartante
Nirahasya dehina
Niraharasya dehina
Rasavarjam rasopyasya
Rasavarjam rasopyasya
Param drishtva nivartate
Param drishtva nivartate
Vishaya vinivartante
Vishaya vinivartante
Niraharasya dehina
Niraharasya dehina Rasavarjapyasya Param drishtva nivartate
Vishaya vinivartante
Vishaya vinivartante
Niraharasya dehina
Niraharasya dehina
Rasavarjam rasopyasya
Rasavarjam rasopyasya
Param drishtva nivartate
Param drishtva nivartate
Vishaya
Vishaya
objects for sense enjoyment.
objects for sense enjoyment
Vinivartante
Vinivartante
are practiced to be refrained from.
are practiced to be refrained from
Niraharasya
Niraharasya
by negative restriction.
by negative restrictions
Dehina
Dehina
for the embodied.
for the embodied
Rasavajam
Rasavarjam
giving up the taste.
giving up the taste
Rasa
Rasa
sense of enjoyment.
sense of enjoyment
Api
Api
although there is.
although there is
Asya
Asya
is
is
Param
Param
far superior things.
far superior things
Drisva
Drishtva
by experiencing.
by experiencing
Nivartate
Nivartate
he ceases from.
he ceases from
Translation. Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. You can all repeat. Though the embodied soul
though the embodied soul
may be restricted
may be restricted
from sense enjoyment,
from sense enjoyment
the taste for sense objects remains.
the taste for sense objects remains
But ceasing such engagements
but ceasing such engagements
by experiencing a higher taste,
by experiencing a higher taste
he is fixed in consciousness.
he is fixed in consciousness
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Unless one is transcendentally situated, it is not possible to cease from sense enjoyment. The process of restriction from sense enjoyment by rules and regulations is something like restricting a diseased person from certain types of eatables. The patient, however, neither likes such restriction nor loses his taste for eatables. Similarly, sense restriction by some spiritual process like Astanga Yoga in the matter of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, etc. is recommended for less intelligent persons who have no better knowledge. But one who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord Krishna in the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness no longer has a taste for dead material things. Therefore, restrictions are there for the less intelligent neophytes in the spiritual advancement of life. But such restrictions are only good until one actually has a taste for Krishna consciousness. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnana Shanaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Kadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yata Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrajantam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Savaitam Savadutam Varijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hariti Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Bhaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this is a very interesting verse in the Bhagavad Gita tonight. I hope you like this verse. It's talking about experiencing the higher taste. Right? I think you all have the higher taste, right? You must have the higher taste. You've come here to hear the Bhagavad Gita rather than to do other things in the Friday evening. You know, there are many people outside and there are many engagements. But you've come to hear the Bhagavad Gita, so that means you have the higher taste. There's the lower taste and the higher taste. you want to understand this verse in relation to the Bhagavad Gita. Earlier, Arjuna had put a question to Lord Krishna, and he wanted to know from Lord Krishna that what is the nature of one whose consciousness is in transcendence? Yeah. How does he speak and what is his language? And then he asked, how does he sit and how does he walk? So our Lord Krishna is replying to these questions, and this verse goes with the previous verse. If you look at the Bhagavad Gita and you see, we read text 59, 58 is talking about the tortoise, because he was asking, actually Lord Krishna is explaining about how does the one who has achieved transcendence, how does he sit, right? In other words, what does he do when he stops his activities? When he's just sitting and he's not doing any activity, what is he doing? What's happening? So, it's described here in these two verses, the 58, the previous verse, maybe you read it the last class, right? The last class was talking about the tortoise. You know the tortoise or the turtles? They have the big shell on their back and they can draw their legs inside, you know? They draw their legs under the shell, and there's just a big shell on the ground. You only see the shell, but under the shell, inside the shell, is the body of the tortoise. And the limbs, the legs, are all drawn inside. So like that, Lord Krishna was giving this example. He said, one who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws its limbs within the shell, then he is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. Really, you could imagine the situation, you know, you may be in a situation where there's a lot of material activities going on, but because you're a Krishna conscious devotee, just like, you know, sometimes, you know, they have parties and people may have all kinds of food which is not vegetarian, which is not pure, and they may even have things like alcohol and cigarettes and things. And so you have to somehow, you have to go there, or you have to be there. So you could just sit there and just, you know, not get involved in any of the things, you know, just be aloof from everything. Just don't get involved. Just like the tortoise, just like the turtle brings its limbs under the shell, and it just sits under the shell. He doesn't take any notice of what's going on around him. So you have to do like that, you see. So Lord Krishna explained like that about the turtle, and now he's saying that we can stop the senses, but you still might be thinking about these things in your mind. The taste, sometimes the taste for these things, just like maybe before you became a devotee, maybe you used to eat things which were not vegetarian, or maybe you were not very strict about things like that. But after you become a devotee, you want to control. So somehow the taste for these things, you still may be thinking that, oh, well, the taste, you know, you think about these things. But when you have the higher taste, then you don't think about it. If we're getting a higher taste, we don't worry about the material taste. So this is the idea that the practice in yoga, that if we're actually experiencing pleasure in chanting Hare Krishna and these activities, then we don't worry about it. I was with one devotee one time. There was this one devotee. He had joined the Hare Krishna devotees. Before he became a devotee, he used to be in a music group, and he was the singer. He was the lead singer in the music group, and then he became a Hare Krishna devotee. So what happened, we were on the street one day in London, and we were chanting Hare Krishna, and who came by along the street but one of his old girlfriends, and she was surprised to see her old boyfriend, that he's singing and chanting Hare Krishna, She goes, oh, yeah. Hey Mike, what are you doing here? What's this? And he was a devotee. He said, Haribo, and he gave her a book. He said, come on, get a book. Give a donation. Come on, give some money. Because he had a taste for Krishna consciousness. So he was not interested. He didn't think, oh, my girlfriend. Or, instead, he was happy to chant Hare Krishna, and he wanted to give her also Krishna consciousness. So rules and regulations, they're there in the beginning. In the beginning you have rules. But after some time you don't even think about the rules and regulations. Just like, sometimes, but what happened, I went to China, and I was in China, and somehow I needed to get a visa there, so I got a job teaching English, and I was teaching English there. It was an educational institute, and at one point the teachers had a program, and they invited everyone, come for the program, So they brought me, I had to go to the program, and they had food, And he said, oh, it's so wonderful, look at all the food, we've prepared all of these things, and oh my goodness, and I was like, whoa, it was just, they were thinking, oh, it's so very nice, look, it's so well cut, and it's so colorful, and everything is done so well. I said, oh yes, but no, really, I don't want anything, thank you. They, because they were not devotees, of course, they don't follow any rules or regulations, and they eat food which is not vegetarian. But because I've been practicing Krishna consciousness, I couldn't even think about taking, just have a taste, just try it. No thanks. So, like that, sometimes you're tested in Krishna consciousness, we get these kind of tests. If we've got an actual taste for Krishna consciousness, then we don't want to go back to that kind of life again, where you eat everything and you don't have any control. So this is practicing yoga, you see. Yoga, controlling the senses, controlling the mind. And we have to develop that kind of taste. There's the higher taste and there's the lower taste. You get one taste, you go to McDonald's or Kentucky Fried and you get a taste there, and you come to Govinda's, you go to Govinda's, you get a different taste, and hopefully you'll understand the taste at Govinda's or the prasadam, like that. It's very different from what you get in, the McDonald's or Kentucky Fried or any of these places. There's the lower taste and the higher taste. The pigs and the dogs, they have their taste. What the Prabhupada said, he gave the example, the devotees came to India 1970, 71, life was really simple, and they went to Vrindavan and these villages and they saw, quite basic and simple there in the villages especially, and there would be these hogs, or pigs they call them, or hogs, or black, right? And they're really dirty things, But they're there in the villages usually. And so, they have these outhouses, and when you go there to use the toilet out there, the hogs, they come and they eat everything you pass, you see. So they have a taste like that. And Prabhupada used to talk about these things. He would say, if you offer the pig some nice halava, which is cooked with ghee and sugar, the pig will say, no thank you. The pig will say, give me some stew. You want to eat the horrible stuff, you see. So, that's the taste of the pigs and the dogs, you see. Their idea of pleasure is something different from a higher, sense-controlled person. We have to understand there's a different degree of pleasure. Different people enjoy pleasure in different ways. So we want to experience if you get the higher taste, then you're fixed in consciousness. You could imagine, when we see the people ride the motorbikes, that it's not very easy, although maybe it's very fast and convenient, but if it's raining or the weather's very cold or something like that, it's not very easy to ride the motorbike. But if you're riding in the car, then you can appreciate, this is a bit better, the higher taste, you get the higher experience. Some devotees, they give the example about traveling. You got economy and business class, there's a big difference, right? Sometimes, one time it happened to me, I got upgraded, from the economy, they upgraded me to business class, and I was in a business class. But only happened one time, But you can enjoy the higher taste, it's a different journey, from the economy class. So the same way it's mentioned here like this. When you get the higher taste, you don't want to go back to the lower taste, right? You're enjoying so much the better thing. When you taste nice prasadam with ghee and everything, it's so nice prasadam. But if you have to eat in some canteen or refectory or fast food place, it's not the same. You don't get the same taste. So this example is given here. And Prabhupada is talking about is that sometimes a person has a disease, they have some kind of fever. And if you have the fever, the doctor may say, don't give him any food. Because if you eat, sometimes they say when you have a cold, you should feed the cold. But if you have a fever, you have to fast with the fever to get over the fever. So the doctor may tell, don't give him any food. And so, patient, maybe a young boy or something, oh, I'm hungry, I want something to eat, And mother said, no, you can't have anything. It's not very easy. And the brother may think, oh, I feel sorry for my brother, I'll give him something to eat. And he gives something to eat, and it's harmful for him because he's got the fever. So it does more harm than good. But the brother was thinking, no, I want to give him, he's hungry, he wanted something to eat. But he doesn't understand that, well, the doctor had said, don't give him anything to eat. So the restriction was good, actually, for him. But we sometimes cannot understand that. So the mother would get angry, why you give him food, you're going to kill your brother, like this. So we have to understand restrictions are good for us in the beginning, to get us healthy, to bring us to a healthy condition. So this is the idea. Some people, they don't like restrictions. They say, oh, Hare Krishna people, they have so many rules, so they don't eat this, they don't eat that. But these things are good for us. These regulations, they help us to come to the higher level, to a higher consciousness. So this is the idea. We have to try to appreciate these things. And it's actually said the more people are civilized, the more they will have rules and regulations. And you can see here in Singapore, there's quite a few rules and regulations, you know. And this morning I went to the botanic gardens and I saw all the rules and regulations there. You know, they had a lot of rules and things. And all the dogs were on leash, you know. They didn't let the dogs just run around and so many things, you know. So these rules and regulations, it's for civilized society. The more we're civilized, the more we have rules and regulations. Actually, we don't have a lot of rules and regulations. In Krishna consciousness, we have only 4 rules. I was in Thailand, and one man asked me, he said, how many rules and regulations do you have here in your religion? No, I said, only 4. He said, oh, only 4? He said, you know, in Buddhism, there are hundreds of rules and regulations. If you're a Buddhist, the Buddhist monks, and sometimes the Buddhist monks, they will sit and chant all the different rules and regulations they're supposed to follow. But he said, hardly they can follow any of them. They have so many rules, but hardly they can follow any of them. And so, what is the good? So we have 4 rules there, 4, right? No this, no that, no that. No meat, fish, no intoxication, no gambling, these things. 4 rules, and not very, Prabhupada said, not very difficult, provided you chant Hare Krishna. So this is the idea that we want to advance and we want to get a taste for better things. We get a taste. There's a taste in everything. Just like there's the taste of prasadam, but there's also the taste of meat, fish and eggs and intoxicant. Some of these things are hard to give up. You know, like tea, one of the people get very attached to drinking tea. And someone told me that they cannot get up in the morning without a cup of tea. It's difficult. And we see if you go on the train in India, every morning you hear chai, chai. And people, oh, they wake up, you know, they want their cup of tea. It's a big thing in the morning. So these things, you know, that we have to get over this kind of attachment for these things and develop the higher taste. The higher taste, you know, means instead of tea, you can drink milk, you know, or drink buttermilk or some yogurt drink or some lassi or something like this, you know. It's a higher taste. You want to lose the taste for the material things. And the same way we want to develop a taste for Krishna consciousness. That rather than taste for ordinary things, mundane things, television and these things, we get more taste for Krishna, for chanting and hearing about Krishna. So Lord Krishna is speaking like this. He said if we develop that higher taste, then that will fix us. We won't be attracted to the ordinary, stale things of the material world. You know, there's the example about literature. There are books for the crows and there are books for the swans. Some people are like crows and they like books like, you know, pornography or these kind of magazines, you know, things like that, which are very gross, sensual. And other people are more like swans, and they want books which are more like that, like books like scriptures, like Mahabharata, Ramayana, Bhagavad Gita, these things. So there's a different taste. They say birds of the feather go together, right? They were telling me this morning there's a lot of crows here in Singapore now. Have you noticed? Crows. Anyway, the crows, they like the dirty place, the garbage. They're fond of that place. And the swans, they're in the place where the water is clear and lotus flowers. So some people are like crows and some people are like swans. Some people go for the literature which are very gross and mundane and sensual, and other people will go for literature which is more spiritual and which is elevating and purifying. So there's a different taste. The crow and the swan. We have to decide which way we want to go, who we want to be with. So Lord Krishna is describing that just simply stopping the taste, just simply, in other words, closing the eyes, like some places they say, don't see any evil, don't hear any evil, don't speak any evil. But that's not enough. You have to replace it, you have to replace with something good. You cannot just say, no, I don't want, but inside you want. Somebody offers you something, oh no, I don't want, but actually inside you really want. So inside we have to develop the higher taste, the taste for something better. So we have to give up the bad thing, we have to replace the bad things with some good things. So Krishna consciousness is not just stop activities, but it's replace inferior or the bad things with the good things, with Krishna consciousness activities, with programs of chanting and hearing about Krishna. So this is the idea. So are there any questions? Anybody?
Yeah, I wanted to ask.
Yes?
Thank you. So, how can one develop that higher taste so that it doesn't become a mundane routine life, but it remains as a high taste always?
Yes. How can one develop a higher taste? We don't think so it's just some mundane ritual which we're doing, but we're actually appreciating that this is something really good, better. Yeah, we have to have that kind of realization. So we can get that kind of realization by practicing devotional service, by associating with devotees and practicing devotional service in a very proper manner. You have to want to really understand Krishna consciousness, and you have to have some realization. Then you can experience that this is a higher thing. I think it's not very difficult when you come to Krishna consciousness and you take part in the Krishna conscious activities. We can experience that it's a very joyful thing. We come and we chant and dance and sit and eat prasadam together. So these activities are very pleasing, satisfying. And we find people, they're always coming looking, when you're having kirtan, they want to know, when's the kirtan, when's the prasadam, They want these things. People come looking for these things. They come to our temples, they come wherever we have a center, they want to know what time is prasadam, when you're having kirtan. They we come looking for these things. So our duty as devotees is to try to give them that taste. People want to chant and they like, everyone likes prasadam, we go out and distribute prasadam. can distribute. We can distribute a lot of prasadam. If we have, the more you have prasadam, the more you can distribute. You know? And there are many places, like in India, you know, they're distributing in the schools. The government are helping to fund it even. They're paying the devotees to go to the schools and distribute, because you have the program in India that every child should have a midday meal, or they should have a couple of meals a day. And so in the schools they distribute meals there. And people really like the prasadam. The children all get prasadam. Even they go to prisons and in the jails, the people in the jail, they really love the prasadam. They don't want to leave the prison after they get prasadam. They're so happy to get prasadam. So, distributing prasadam, we do try to do that more and more, especially when there's big festivals on. Rath Yatra, we distribute so much prasadam. Thaipusam, we distribute prasadam. It's always going on, you know, a lot of prasadam distribution. So people, they want, they get attached to these things and they enjoy prasadam. They're experiencing some taste for Krishna consciousness. And we see people go to a holy place, they will come back with prasadam. I brought you some prasadam from Vrindavan, I brought you some prasadam from Mayapur, and they distribute prasadam. Devotees are so eager. Even devotees will eat the dirt coming from the holy dham. They're so attached. Oh, you've got the dust of the holy dham, and we will take some drops of the dust. So like that, it's a higher taste. We want Krishna consciousness. And we're not attracted anymore to the mundane, to the material. We want the higher thing. It's like the pig. We don't want to be like the pig and say, oh, give me some stew, you know, and I don't want the halava. No, we prefer halava. Devotees like halava, right? Well, maybe in this country it's so hot you don't need halava so much. But if you're countries where it's cold, you know, if you go to Europe and like Russia, these places where it's really cold, then in the winter time you take some halava, it really heats you up, you appreciate it, you know. So there's a higher taste. So we can get that higher taste just by being with devotees. You become attached to devotees and you get a little taste for these things, you never want to go away. You never leave Krishna consciousness, you just want to be with the devotees all the time. And we're seeing like that. More and more people want to become devotees, they become Krishna conscious. Because they become attracted to the activities. They're getting a taste. And they're getting a higher taste, they leave behind the lower taste. They don't want the mundane, the lower material things. You know? Bhagavad Gita describes, of course, there's two kinds of people. There's Daivi Sampat and Asuric Sampat. So the devotees, they're like Devi Sampat, they're like divine qualities. But the demons, the asuras, they're the demons, they don't know what to do and what not to do. Pavritim cha navritim cha janana vadur asura. They don't know what should be done and what should not be done. They're so much in the mode of passion and ignorance. But the devotees, those who are devotees, they become attractive. This Krishna consciousness, this is so much nicer than the mundane, than the material things. So disease life, material life is like that, it's full of problems. So once we've tasted the beauty of Krishna consciousness, we can never go back to the material world. Even sometimes we meet people who, somehow they used to be devotee, but for some reason, some difficulty, somehow they leave, and then you meet them, and they say, "Oh, hey Prabhu, how are you? I haven't seen you for a long time." And they say, "Oh yeah, I guess I'm in Maya." They know they're in Maya, they're just not able, somehow the modes of nature are so strong, they're not able to get out of it, to get free of the modes of nature. But if they actually have the taste, they can never go back to the material world again. One who has tasted Krishna consciousness, then, oh no, you don't want to go back to the material world. One devotee came to Srila Prabhupada and he was telling Prabhupada, he said, "Srila Prabhupada, sometimes when I'm chanting Hare Krishna," he said, "sometimes I can remember the things I did before I became a devotee." He said, "Why is it like that?" And Srila Prabhupada said, "Krishna is telling you, if you ever stop chanting Hare Krishna, then you have to go back to that life again." So Prabhupada was warning him, don't ever stop chanting Hare Krishna, because if you do, then you just go back to that life.
Maharaj, I have one question. Let's say, as you said, if we develop higher taste, we will give up lower taste. But sometimes we are habitual of that lower taste for a very long time. Then it's become very difficult to give up lower taste, because maybe since birth we are doing some activities, or we are doing for a very long time. Then it's difficult. Then what should we, how we can give up that activity which is very difficult to give up?
Yes, right. Sometimes like that, people, we have these habits, they're brought up, with all kinds of bad habits. If you're born in non-Krishna conscious families, so from the beginning of life we're accustomed to a lot of bad habits, watching television and mundane things, then all kinds of non-sattvic things which are not pure. So how to give them up? No, you have to really want to give them up. You have to first of all have the desire. You have to appreciate that these things are not really not good at that. You don't want to. You have to want to really get free from these things. So the desire has to be there. It's really important that the individual really doesn't want to be a slave. He wants to get away from these things. So that determination is very important, you see, that you really want to give them up. And then Krishna will help. Krishna will make arrangements. You see? We have many examples like that. Of course, there was an example, Ajamila, Magrari, the hunter. Narada Muni met Magrari, the hunter. Narada Muni was traveling, somehow he came through the jungle and he saw these animals all caught in traps. And the animals were dying a slow and painful death. And Narada Muni thought, who has done this? Who's put these animals? And then he met Magrari. Magrari the hunter was just about to kill an animal with his arrow. And Narada Muni came and chased the animal away, and Magrari got angry at Narada Muni, "Oh, you chased the animal away." But Narada Muni told Magrari, he said, "You're killing these animals, you don't know, these animals are going to kill you. In the future, you're giving them pain, in the future they will give you pain. The law of material nature is like that. You cause pain and suffering for others, you will get pain and suffering yourself back." So Narada Muni, by his mystical power, he could convince Magrari the hunter So Magrari said, but what can I do? He said, my whole life I've been hunting animals. My father taught me to hunt animals. He said, this is how I maintain my life. What am I supposed to do? But Narada Muni convinced him. He said, no, you just leave everything. You just follow me and I will show you. And so Narada Muni took him and they got Tosi and they made a place where Tosi was, and he told the Magrari, now you just sit here and you chant the holy name. And when Magrari sat there, and he said, how will I eat? Narada Muni said, don't worry, he said, the Lord will arrange for you to get your food. You don't worry. So Magrari sat there and he was chanting, and people in the village, they heard, oh, the hunter has become a devotee and started to chant. And so they also wanted to come and see him, and they would bring food to offer to him, and in this way everybody was bringing food to him regularly. And so Narada Muni came back to see him and he said, are you all right? He said, oh yeah, he said, I'm getting everything, I have no problem. So this is a famous example. A hunter, very sinful person, they can also become devotee. They can give up the bad habits. You see, I'm not from a Hindu family. I'm from Western society. You know, my family are not Hindu, they're not vegetarian. They don't follow any principles. You know, but somehow I took up Krishna consciousness by chanting Hare Krishna, by association with devotees. And so, like that, I've been chanting now more than 50 years, chanting Hare Krishna, following Krishna consciousness. So, you can do it. And we have, I'm not unique, there's so many others, Western people also who are doing. So people from any walk of life, any condition, they can become Krishna conscious by the mercy of devotees. A good association and practice, and you lose a taste for material things, because Krishna consciousness itself is so enjoyable that we are having so much better life, chanting Hare Krishna, being with the devotees, working for Krishna. It is so much satisfying that we don't want to go back to material life. So we have bad habits in the beginning, but we can give them up. That they're wrong, that it's wrong to kill the animals, that it's wrong to do these things, you know, intoxication and gambling and illicit sex and these things, they're all sinful. They can entangle us in sinful activities. You do sinful activities, you suffer, you bring suffering on ourselves. So with thoughtful person, we're serious, we will certainly want to give up these bad habits. So we have to convince people that you cannot be happy in sinful life. You engage in sinful activities, it will keep you in the material world, and you have to take birth in different species of life and suffer. So we become convinced that we should work for Krishna, sacrifice for Krishna. Alright? Any other question? Yes, Prabhu?
Because I'm a kid, I really like playing football. So I also read in this one book, Sri Prabhupada was going in a car. He was having a conversation with His Grace Shrutakirti Prabhu. He saw some kids playing football and he said, it's very, he did not encourage football that much. So he did not encourage playing sports also that much. So I'm really attached. How do I give it up?
You're very attached to football?
He's a kid, right?
Huh?
He's a kid, young boy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, football is... yeah, well, I heard that Prabhupada said he used to play the goalkeeper. He would be the goalkeeper. Because I didn't want to run around. Just stand in the goal. If you're a goalkeeper, you can just stand there. But the other people are running back and forward. So he thought it was much easier just to be the goalkeeper. So that's one thing you could do. Save your energy.
One question. You have mentioned you just follow 4 rules. What is that 4 rules?
4 rules well, vegetarian, no meat, fish and egg, no intoxication, no gambling, and no illicit sex. Not like that. Means no sex outside marriage. People should be married. So this is the 4 rules. The 4 principles are based on the 4 legs of the bull. In Hindu society, the bull is called Dharma and stands on 4 legs. And the 4 pillars are cleanliness, mercy, austerity, and truthfulness. So cleanliness, mercy, austerity. So we say Satyam, Socham, Daya, Tapa. Satyam, truthfulness. Socham, cleanliness. Daya, mercy. Tapa, austerity. So the austerity is to give up pride. To give up pride and to give up things like your alcohol, your cigarettes, these kind of things. They're intoxication. And then gambling, we don't gamble. And then cleanliness, keep by avoiding illicit sex, you can keep cleanliness. And then mercy, don't kill animals. So don't eat meat, fish and eggs. So these things, there's the 4 principles. And to help us do that, we chant Hare Krishna. The chanting of the Mahamantra gives us spiritual power. When you chant the names of the Lord, you associate with the Lord through His holy name, and it gives us the power to follow principles, these 4 principles. So in the beginning, it's like a restriction, but after some time, you don't think about it. You think that this is natural. Just like there's many people, they're born vegetarian. Not that they become vegetarian, but they've always been vegetarian. Some families, they have that, that they're naturally vegetarian. We have there's this one devotee I was with, he's from South Africa. He's an African devotee, but he's from a Christian family, and his family were vegetarian from South Africa, from Africa. Black African, and his family are vegetarian, so his whole life he's been vegetarian. And he also never drank tea or coffee like that. He's from Africa. So if people in Africa, even they can do that, they can be vegetarian. And certainly in India, and people from Hindu societies, not difficult for them. And nowadays more and more people understand vegetarian very important, because there's so many diseases, you eat things from the sea. And one man I know in Hong Kong, he went to the restaurant, he had some seafood, he got so sick, he thought, I'm never going to eat these things again. Because sometimes we have to learn the hard way. You have to learn these things. That you want to keep your health, better to avoid these things. So that's a higher taste, the higher taste. The pigs, they will eat everything, but brahmanas, people with more control over their tongue and senses, they'll be more careful about what they eat. But what they do, not only what they eat, but their activities also. So like that, a higher taste, a better standard of living. Yeah? Okay, any other questions? Okay.
Guru,
Yes, Prabhu?
Guru Maharaj, when we take association from a devotee, do we need to screen that devotee that he may have some not so good qualities? I mean, we are supposed not to see defects in others, but if there's something that we don't want to associate with, then is it okay to screen devotees, or we should just simply take an association of devotees, Guru Maharaj?
Yeah, we have to be a little selective about devotees. We have to recognize that there are different levels of devotees. In the Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami explains these things. He said, we should mentally honor a devotee who chants the holy name. And we should offer our obeisances to someone who's initiated and is engaged in worshipping the deity. And we should associate with and faithfully serve a devotee who is fixed in undeviating devotional service and is free of the propensity to criticize others. So Rupa Goswami is pointing out that there are different levels of devotees. You know, there's Kanishta, Madhyam and Uttama. So you do want to be a little careful. While we respect all devotees, but we're very how you want to actually deal with more advanced. You know, if you want to get the better association, or more intimate, or more getting instructions and so on, then you get that from the more senior devotee, from the higher devotee. So yeah, we're respectful to all devotees. So. Okay. So we'll stop here.
Any questions?
Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Bhagavad Gita ki jai.